Hello, I'm Annalisa Murphy, and if you know me personally, you're probably quite shocked to see me recording this video at 8 a.m. Or finding out about that, because usually I'm not out of bed until at least 10 a.m. Something happened that I couldn't ignore. One of my family members wrote a blog post that struck a deep chord in me, and I felt an urgent need to share not only my thoughts, but my professional knowledge about this subject. By profession, I'm a clinical mental health counselor, and in that role, I deal with a wide array of human experiences and emotions daily. But beyond my professional identity, I'm a mother to a transgender child. I also have other transgender relatives, including some of the children of my blood relatives. My journey is intertwined with theirs, and the thing is, it shapes the lens through which I see the world. Personally, I'm neurodivergent with my lovely inattentive style of ADHD, which affects me daily. But before I was diagnosed, I learned how to cope or manage the symptoms in a way that made me mask a lot of who I am. My perfectionism, which is still huge for me, and I'm doing a lot better because I have leaned into accepting my imperfectionism. I've leaned into being who I am, right? So there's been a lot of unpacking in my own personal space around having ADHD. And people have been mostly accepting of it because having ADHD isn't considered a sin or morally wrong or anything like that. Autism is also neurodivergent, and at least in my corner of the world, autism is also something that's not considered a sin or morally wrong. But neurodivergent basically means that those of us with neurodivergent brains have structures within our brains that function differently because of the way in which our brains formed in utero. They're still researching how and why, all that stuff. But there's something about neurodivergent people that I'm sure many of you have heard mask a lot of their neurodivergency. And so I've been witnessing a lot of individuals within my family realize that they're neurodivergent. And some people in my family are very neurodivergent because it's a common thread running through many of my family members, both extended and immediate. Some of them I have ADHD. Some of them are on the autism spectrum. Some have been officially diagnosed. Some, personally, I just suspect are on the spectrum, even though they haven't gotten the diagnosis. Getting that diagnosis can be scary, and so I think that There are people in my family who do not want to go down that road because, they see how heartbreaking it is to see how those of us that have been diagnosed navigate our neurodivergency landscapes. But at least we have a map. Those undiagnosed don't even have a map. I just realized that you may be thinking that my seemingly abrupt change of topic is from my ADHD. Well, maybe it is a little bit. But the crux of this is this: being neurodivergent and transgender intersects in profound and complex ways for some individuals. I'm cisgender. I know this because I've explored what it means to be transgender, and it's not what you think. But both transgender and neurodivergency, those experiences, make one feel inherently different from the majority, like carrying an additional lens through which you view the world, right? So I've got ADHD, but because I'm cisgender and white, and able-bodied and privileged, all of those things don't affect me, but being a woman does. Having ADHD does. I'm also polyamorous, so that definitely affects the way in which I view the world. And unfortunately, these different lenses can both clarify and distort depending on the situation. For my kid and some of my relatives, navigating their transgender identity alongside ADHD or autism just adds an extra layer of complexity to their everyday lives. Those of you that don't know, neurodivergency, it means that thinking and feeling and processing is different than a neurotypical individual. And this difference can amplify the unique challenges faced by transgender individuals, such as social dysphoria and navigating gender expectations. For example, an autistic transgender person might experience heightened sensitivity to the physical aspects of gender dysphoria, or struggle more intensely with social norms and expectations that are already hard to navigate. And moreover, being neurodivergent can affect how one communicates and expresses their gender identity. So someone with ADHD might have difficulty with the executive functioning required to consistently manage aspects of their gender presentation. Meanwhile, an autistic person might find solace in the routines and predictability of certain gender expressions, or conversely, they might struggle with rigid societal expectations that clash with their sense of self. Research suggests there's a high prevalence of neurodivergence among transgender individuals, and it's much higher than in the general population. This could be due to a variety of factors, including the heightened self-awareness and introspection that often is found in neurodivergent individuals, which might lead them to explore and understand their gender identity more deeply. However, if the transgender individual grew up in a society where not only is being transgender a sin, but isn't even something that is allowed to be thought about because it would make you a sinner, many transgender individuals can't even recognize that they are transgender until and if they are able to stop believing in those destructive beliefs. Listen, I could get into a whole other distraction talking about conservative religions and the harm they cause, but I promise I will save that for another video. So stay with me. Both neurodivergent and transgender individuals often face significant social stigma and misunderstanding, and this can lead to compounded mental health challenges such as anxiety, depression, feelings of isolation. Listen, for my child and other family members, the dual burden of navigating these intersecting identities in a world that often misunderstands or invalidates them can be overwhelming. In essence, the intersection of neurodivergence and being transgender is a rich, multifaceted experience that requires a deep understanding and compassion. It highlights the need for inclusive and sensitive support systems that can address the unique challenges and celebrate the unique strengths of individuals living at this intersection. So here I am at 8 a.m., breaking my usual routine because some things are too important to wait. So let's start this conversation together. I know I'm already 10 minutes in, so hopefully you're still with me. I'm going to do some education info dumping right now. What is transgender? What is it? What does that mean? So healthcare providers assign a baby a sex at birth. Babies may be assigned female at birth, which is what the acronym AFAB means, or assigned male at birth, which is AMAB, based on their external physical genitalia. The term cisgender describes people who identify as the gender that matches their assigned sex. For example, if you're biologically born female and you identify as a female, then you're cisgender. But for some people, as they grow up and understand themselves better, they find that their gender doesn't match their assigned biological sex. Okay, so let's talk about what that actually means and why, right? So brain function. We talked about neurodivergence being different ways in which our brains process. Well, guess what? Transgender is a neurodivergent expression of a brain that is functioning differently than a typical brain. So it's interesting, they've done numerous tests and studies, and they've discovered that the brain activity, if you look at an MRI of a brain, the brain activity in transgender individuals can also resemble that of the gender they identify with, right? So if you took a brain scan of a biologically assigned an AMAB individual, male at birth, and scanned their brain, you may find that when certain areas of their brain are active, they function in a similar way to the brains of cisgender individuals of that same gender identity. So in my example, the brain would look like the functionality of a female brain. Hormones. Let's talk about hormones. So they're crucial in brain development. So differences in hormone levels before birth can and do influence gender identity. Also, hormone therapy for transgender individuals can change brain structure and function to align more closely with their gender identity. Because the hormones that somebody takes affect how the body shows up, they don't change the brain. Okay, the brain is already a female brain, a male brain, a non-binary brain, right? So those things happen in utero where the mother may have either more or less testosterone influencing the development of the brain to be a certain gender. But then when the body starts developing its sex organs and those different things that identify you as female or male, remember, because everyone technically starts out as female, even though there's some variation. It's a lot more. Nothing's black and white, people. Nothing is black and white. And when we can remember that, then we can hold space for this. Although, interestingly enough, a lot of people with autism are so black and white in their thinking that they end up getting so stuck in that black and white thinking that they can't hold gray space either for themselves or for other transgender individuals. So that's why I think it's important for people to be able to say, okay, how do we show up and be an ally if we ourselves are struggling with black and white thinking? And that's not only in autism, that's just people. And that was kind of a side tangent for sure. But I think it relates very closely to what I'm talking about here, is that the education of understanding why someone is transgender is important as we process and destigmatize and find a new way of looking at the world. And honestly, black and white not only being, things are never binary. They just aren't. They just aren't. It's important that we understand that we can get to that new norm of saying, okay, so now it's just another piece of information in my arsenal about people, the world, how the world works. It's just another piece of information. We as human beings, even the most brilliant people, are really still struggling with understanding how the brain works. We have a pretty good understanding of how the dumb organs work, right? But the brain is so far advanced that it is something that we cannot claim to completely understand. And so when we do study these things and figure these things out, we're observing what's happening in the brain, but we can't change it. We just have to understand it. But I digress. Now let's talk about genetics when it comes to gender. Studies are starting to look at markers of genetic factors, of genes that may influence gender identity. To be clear, this area of research is still developing and no specific genes have been pinpointed yet, but anecdotally, there seems to be a genetic component to both ADHD, autism, and transgender. And also sexuality. Which is important to recognize that it's not a choice. If the science behind it says, there's evidence that genetically the brains of neurodiverse individuals look the same as their family members, whether those family members have been diagnosed as neurodivergent or not. Also, I think it's important to talk about the psychological and social influences of gender. Okay, so being transgender involves a mix of biological, so we've talked about the brain and the hormones, psychological and social factors. That's how we perceive and understand gender, right? So if we have experiences, negative experiences, stigma, discrimination, those impact mental health and brain function. Okay, so if you have a female brain but you're in a male body and you're experiencing stigma and discrimination and you don't even recognize that you are transgender because it's so against what you have been exposed to in your life, your brain, however, still believes that you should be female. And so that leads to depression, anxiety, major denial. A lot of people don't have signs that they are the other gender, but they do have signs of disengaging from life, always feeling like something is wrong, something is not quite right. To a lesser degree, before I knew I had ADHD, I also believed that something was just inherently wrong with me. People would make comments when I was a child. I talked too fast. I was brilliant at understanding and education and putting things together, but hell, if I could turn in a paper on time, right? I failed my science class in 7th grade merely because I couldn't get my shit together, right? And I'm like, why can everyone else do this? This is just there's just something broken and wrong with me. And with a transgender individual, they can't even point to what is wrong because they don't know it's possible for their brain to believe they should be feminine. They just know that when they show up male or female, depending on what's going on, or non-binary, they feel disconnected. They dissociate, and they dissociate for years, and they mask for years, and they just are miserable and sad and frustrated, and they get to the point where they don't feel joy, and they keep going to see therapists and general practitioners, and they say you're depressed, you're anxious, you need to do something with your life, you need to make a behavior change, you need to just live in the moment. But how can you live in the moment if you don't feel at home in your body, and you don't even know you don't feel at home in your body, right? So it's really important that we understand this, that the brain function changes to be a brain that is broken in its positive neurotransmitter spaces. The brain's plastic. Thank God those 80s commercials were wrong. This is your brain on drugs with the eggs. If anyone remembers that. Any questions? Yeah, I have questions. No, actually our brain is plastic. So the discrimination and the stigma and the depression and the anxiety and all those things that literally change the brain's structure can change when the transgender individual gets what they need. Okay, we need to understand this so we can support transgender individuals better. Listen, the research suggests that being transgender has a biological basis involving the brain, hormones, and possibly genetics. You guys, this information helps validate the experiences of trans people and underscores the importance of supporting them through medical, psychological, and social means. I'm going to get personal here. As an ally, a true ally, it's not just accepting, it's affirming. Do you know the difference between accepting and affirming? Accepting is, yeah, I believe that. I fine, great, that's your truth. Affirming is, not only do I know that's your truth, but I see you. And I want you to be happy, and I want to figure out how to do that. And let me tell you something, as a cisgender person, when I've had people tell me they're transgender, I do have this initial feeling of discomfort because of my conditioning, because I was raised in this same environment. I was raised in the same society as everyone else here in the Western United States, that apparently I just think only people from the Western United States are going to watch this video. Who knows? But even in the world, it's not something that is accepted everywhere. I would say there's actually, and I don't know, I'm just speaking off the cuff, but there's not very many spaces that are very accepting of this, right? So being able to say, yeah, it feels uncomfortable, but guess who's the one person that never needs to make you feel comfortable about them? That's them. Your job as a loving person is to process your uncomfortableness with your own therapist, with a friend or family member that is not the one that is coming out as transgender or is trying to figure out their own stuff. It is not okay for you to question their validity in that space, or that you didn't see it coming, or it can't be true. Those are things you do not want to do. Okay, so that being said, how do we support our transgender friends and family members? Okay, so let's say your family member comes out as transgender. It is incredibly brave and a very vulnerable moment for them. It's got to be one of the scariest things to A, realize about yourself, B, get some gender relief, but then realize you have to change not only your understanding of yourself, but also inform others so that they can support your change, which is going to be very difficult. No one chooses to put themselves in a position where life is harder without a really good reason. The reason is they don't have to feel numb anymore. They don't have to feel like a sociopath. They don't have to feel like they can't connect or be alive. Many transgender individuals have never felt the joy of just being that cisgender people take for granted. So, if you want to be an ally, you have to understand, you have to approach this with empathy, which means feeling their feelings. Don't take them on as yours, but feel them. You can empty out at the end of the conversation. I have to empty out every day after I do therapy. But that's what it means. Put yourself in their shoes, okay? Understanding, and understanding is not questioning them. That is doing your own research. That is asking other people. That is sitting in the suck of uncomfortableness, confusion, and fear. That's how you come to an understanding. And you have to have a willingness to learn and an urgency to learn. Okay, so with that being said, here are some practical ways you can truly support and be there for your loved one. Okay, so listen and validate. Okay, so when my family members came out to me as trans, I realized, and I actually realized this before, but I knew that one of the most powerful things I could do was simply listen. And listen is active. It's an active skill. Okay? You don't say things like, oh, that's good for you, or, I'm so happy for you, or that's nice. It's not listening. Active listening is asking questions, is being curious. Do not assume things. Okay, you have to make an effort to hear their experiences without judgment or interruption. Okay, you have to do that because you have to recognize you don't know what the hell is going on in their body and mind. Okay, and it wasn't about me trying to understand everything immediately. It wasn't about me questioning so that I could get to the heart of it and be like, I understand everything now that you've gone through and went through, and now I can be your ally, okay? It's about acknowledging their reality and validating their feelings. So what you can say is, I hear you. I see you. Your feelings are valid. Those aren't lies. You do hear them because you're listening actively. You do see them because you see them as a person you love. Okay? And your feelings are valid. Tell them their feelings are valid. Okay? This simple act of listening and validating makes them be seen and supported. Makes them feel seen and supported. Yeah. Okay, second step, they tell you, you've listened. You still have a lot of questions. You're feeling uncomfortable. You don't know what to do. Okay? So what do you do next? To be a genuine ally, you have to educate yourself about what it means to be transgender. Okay? I spent time reading books, watching documentaries, following trans activists on social media. And the more I learned, the better I understood the challenges my family members faced, and also my own clients, right? So I have a lot of transgender clients, and I learn all the time. And this self-education also helps me avoid putting the burden on them to explain everything. Because when they did choose to share, I was more prepared to engage in meaningful conversations and offer informed support. Okay, guys, this is a simple one. It really is. Use correct pronouns and name. People get married. They have a new last name if they choose to take it. We don't have an issue. We call them Instead of Miss Murphy, they're now Mrs. Anderson, right? Whatever. It's not that difficult. Yeah, you're going to mess up. And sometimes people mess up with like the marriage thing too, right? You've known them as Murphy for forever. Um, when you mess up, do not make the person that you messed up hold space for your uncomfortableness about messing up. Do not say things like, oh my God, sorry, I should have known better. This is just really hard. I can't do this. It's so hard. It's so hard for me to remember. Because that makes that person feel like they have to make you feel better. All you do is you say thank you and you correct yourself and you move on. And if you catch yourself, you just immediately correct yourself. Okay? It's about making the effort and showing that you honor their identity. And I promise you, over time, it will become second nature. Okay? I had times when I noticed how much it meant to them that I respected this aspect of their identity. Okay? It reduced the depression and anxiety, and it helped them normalize and not doubt their own experience. If you spend your entire life in a box and you get out of the box, sometimes you still feel like you belong in the box because everyone liked you in the box. Okay? The box is no place to live. Be an advocate. What does that mean, right? So being an ally also means standing up for them, especially in situations where they might not be able to advocate for themselves. This is honestly why I was like, well, I'm getting up at 8 and I'm making a video. Not only is it personally important to me, but as a mental health counselor, it would be unethical and irresponsible of me not to make this video this morning. Okay, there are people that cannot advocate for themselves, and that does not mean that I want to speak for them. But that I want to help create a safe space so they can step into it and speak for themselves at some point. And sometimes that takes a mediator. I make it a point to challenge transphobic comments and educate others whenever I can. Family gatherings, social settings online, I aim to create a supportive environment where they can feel safe and accepted. That's all. You don't need to go down and march at the Capitol if you don't want to. Be an ally, be an advocate, even when the person isn't there. Do not gossip, do not. You can say to them like, yeah, it challenged my conditioning too. Here's some of the feelings I initially had. Have a conversation about it. That's an appropriate conversation to have as an ally with someone that's struggling. Do not make the person that's struggling have that conversation with the person who's not safe. You can offer practical support as an ally. Listen, transitioning it is a complex process, and it sometimes involves legal, medical, and social changes. I try to offer practical support by helping them navigate these aspects. Sometimes it's as simple as accompanying them to go buy some new clothes, or assisting with paperwork, or just being there when they need to talk. And as a clinician, I write letters for surgery. And knowing that they had someone to lean on made a significant difference, not only for them, but for me. Being a safe person feels really damn good. So be one. It's not harming you or hurting you in any way. Okay? It's just not. That's conditioning. Something else as an ally you need to do is respect their privacy. Coming out is a personal journey, and it's important to respect their privacy. So I make sure to never out them to others without their explicit permission, because their story is theirs to tell, and respecting their boundaries is crucial in maintaining their trust. You have to also be patient and compassionate. Okay, there are times of confusion and setbacks and emotional ups and downs in this process for an ally. But I try to remain patient and compassionate to myself. Listen, it wasn't always easy, but I reminded myself this is about their well-being, not mine. Okay? Every step of the way, you have to show them that you're there for the long haul and you are committed to supporting them unconditionally, no matter what that ends up looking like for them. Okay? And then finally, you have to celebrate. Celebrate when they come out. Celebrate their milestones and encourage them through those challenges. Transitioning is an emotional roller coaster. Okay? Celebrating their courage and their strength and their authenticity. It helps reinforce my support. Not just I'm there for you, but I'm glad you are who you are. Okay, whether it be celebrating their new name or a successful legal change or simply acknowledging their bravery, these moments of encouragement mean everything. Being there for my family members in these ways, I show them that my support is genuine and unwavering, and it is. And listen, it's a continuing journey. But being an ally means committed to learning, growing, and standing by them every step of the way. So I'm going to put on my clinical hat again one more time here. What effect do you think being transgender has on a person's mental health? So some trans individuals don't experience mental health issues at all. Others have mental health issues that aren't related to being transgender. But for some, and many I would say, mental health and gender identity are related. Now, generally this isn't due to being transgender. That's not wrong. But the mental health issues come from the social stigma that often exists in those spaces. Transgender individuals often face discrimination and other challenges in society. If you're transgender, you may feel unwelcome at home, school, work, social settings. More than half of transgender students who are out, publicly open about their transgender status, in kindergarten through senior in high school, experience verbal harassment. 1 in 4 experience physical attacks, and more than 1 in 10 are sexually assaulted. Among transgender adults, almost half report being verbally harassed in the past year. And by the way, a lot of that verbal harassment comes from close family members and friends that think they're being sensitive. They're not. Okay? It's not just being catcalled on the street or threatened. 1 in 10 are physically attacked or sexually assaulted in a given year. Trans people may also experience bullying, discrimination, harassment or intimidation, and prejudice. And as a result of these painful and traumatic experiences, 39% of trans individuals report experiencing severe psychological distress, disassociation, trauma. They hold it in the body. They're unhealthy, they're sick, they can't lose weight, they feel yucky all the time. They don't know. Why? By comparison, only 5% of the general USA population report this type of distress. If I haven't made it clear by now, being transgender is not a mental illness. If you're transgender, it means that you have a different identity, a different gender identity than the one you were assigned at birth. Okay, gender identity is defined as the personal sense of one's own gender, what your brain thinks your gender is, because the brain was told you would be that gender. It prepared itself to have a body that matches the gender that it was told to prepare for. That's what it is, okay? So the desire to convey your gender in a way you feel most authentic, that they feel most authentic, is a normal aspect of human expression. I am wearing earrings because I like them and I like that they are female. Men wear earrings that aren't transgender. Earrings are just a fun way to express who I am. But guess what? I could be a cisgender woman and never wear earrings because I would think earrings were horrible, right? It's just, how can I express myself as me? And I, for the most part, not all, but for the most part, show up in spaces, show up in ways that match what others believe a female gender is, right? So I don't have any discomfort. Nobody challenges me on it, right? I'm able to just express. If, as a female, we were still not allowed to wear pants, I would probably be fine just wearing dresses and skirts. I love wearing pants. I'm glad that females can do that. But because, we have as a society decided a long time ago, thank God, that women can wear pants. It's not really a gendered thing anymore. It was at one point. But when I'm naked, when I do not see clothing, my brain goes, yeah, that's your body. Instead of transgender individuals, before they recognize it or come out, when they look in the mirror, they don't actually even, they dissociate. They dissociate. And sometimes when they catch glimpses of their body that doesn't match their brain and they weren't prepared to dissociate, they jump scare themselves. These aren't supposed to be here. Why do I have breasts? Whatever it is for them. So let's talk about gender dysphoria, which is an actual diagnosis you can get in the DSM, right? You can't be diagnosed with being transgender as a problem, or transsexual, which is what it used to be called in older DSMs. Thank God they removed that, because it actually has nothing to do with sex in the way in which the world views the word sex. Biological sex, yes, but gender, I'm glad they changed it. Anyway, that's a whole nother discourse. So what is gender dysphoria? It's a condition that affects many transgender people before they transition, before they begin living as their authentic selves, right? So it describes a sense of unease regarding the mismatch between assigned sex, what the doctors say at birth, and gender identity, what your brain says, right? And it can occur at any point during life, from childhood to adult. Okay, so if someone transitions later because they discovered they were transgender later, it wasn't that they suddenly became transgender. It's that they finally were able to put a label on that sense of unease in their body that they didn't know what it was. Okay? They didn't know what was quote unquote wrong with them, that didn't allow them to engage in life the same way other people did. And so everyone went, well, you're just depressed. You're just anxious. You're just whatever. Some people resort to trying to soothe these things by isolating, by having, very limited social experiences where they put themselves out there. Some people resort to drugs and alcohol, right? Because that's a coping mechanism. Not a good one, but it is one that people will use. So once they get the information, understand what's been going on, they start to feel gender dysphoria. They were feeling it before. It didn't have a name. But now when they recognize it and they do have moments of like congruence, and they are not allowed to continue to feel congruent as they start to transition, the depression, the anxiety, the suicide ideation increases to levels where it wasn't even before they knew they were transgender. Because they know what it's like to feel connected to themselves. They've never felt that. Okay? So that's gender dysphoria. And if it's untreated, right, where they recognize they're a different gender, but they can't do anything about it or are not allowed to present the way they want to, it can lead to severe emotional and psychological distress and, yes, suicide. So stop making it about yourself. That is not what an ally does. Okay? So, support. Listen. Let them know you're there for them, no matter what they need to talk about, even if you don't know the specifics of their struggles. And by the way, that's fine. You don't need to nitpick them to death to make them prove to you that is their truth. Okay? Just let them know you're there for them. Here's some other steps you can take. I've already talked about pronouns and name. Don't share information about their gender or transition without their permission. Express your concern for their well-being and your desire for them to live a happy life. Do you want them to be happy or not? Ask how you can help them feel understood. Offer to go with them to appointments or check in afterwards if you can't be there in person. Have patience. No, the healing process takes time. You guys, it takes time. Give yourself time without damaging a person that you already know has been damaged and that you love. Stop the cycle. Stop. Finally, I need to talk about this trend that I've noticed in supposed allies. It's basically saying to the transgender person, I support you and love you, but I don't want to hear about it or talk about it. This approach, while seemingly supportive, is deeply problematic. As an ally, genuine support goes beyond a simple declaration of acceptance. It involves actively engaging with and validating the transgender person's experiences. When you tell someone that you love and support them, but don't want to hear about or discuss their identity, you're essentially asking them to hide a fundamental part of who they are. This isn't just asking them to not talk about finances because they happen to professionally be an accountant and they talk about finances a lot and you're like, I love you, I don't want to hear about finances, right? Because that's not a fundamental part of what the accountant is. When you do this, it sends a message that their identity is something to be tolerated rather than celebrated and respected. And for transgender individuals, their gender identity is not just a minor detail, but a significant aspect of their lives. It shapes their experiences, their challenges, their interactions. And by refusing to engage in conversations about their identity, allies inadvertently contribute to the marginalization and isolation that transgender people often feel. It can be incredibly invalidating and hurtful to have a crucial part of one's life dismissed or ignored, especially by those who claim to support them. This stance also places the emotional burden on transgender individuals to navigate their identity alone, without the understanding and the solidarity that true allies should provide. It perpetuates feelings of shame and reinforces the societal stigma that many transgender people face. True allyship requires active listening, ongoing learning, and a willingness to have sometimes really uncomfortable conversations. It's about creating a safe space where transgender individuals can express themselves fully and be seen and heard for who they truly are. Listen, being a real ally means embracing the whole person, their transgender identity, their neurodivergency if they have that, their experiences, their truth. And if you say, well, my truth is different than their truth, you've clearly never had your core identity questioned. Being an ally means showing up, speaking out, and being present in both the joyful and challenging moments of their journey. Anything else, anything less, falls short of the support that transgender individuals need and deserve. Life is too short to hold on to maladaptive conditioning that places us in opposition to other human beings we are robbing ourselves of joy. We are robbing ourselves of connection. We are robbing ourselves of growth. We are robbing ourselves because we believe we know best. And we believe the people that taught us, the religious leaders, the politicians, the people that are the authorities, that they know better than the person who's experiencing their own life. Transitioning, leaning into transgender relieves depression. Sometimes it disappears. Relieves anxiety. Okay? If becoming aligned with your gender identity and your outward appearance and whatever that looks like for you was a problem, it would increase depression and anxiety. When my youngest came out, and my youngest, by the way, is out to everyone in the world if they so choose to care, non-binary, was first transitioning, and they were wearing a binder. They were working at a yogurt shop nearby, and a young child came in, 5, 6, who knows, to get yogurt with his mom, and he was talking with my child, and they were having a stupid little conversation you have with a 5-year-old, I guess. And the mom came over and said to this child, "Who were you talking to?" Right? And my kid's behind the cashier, so it wasn't like a dangerous thing or anything, or behind the register. And this boy looks up at my child and turns to his mom and says, "I'm talking to it." Now, when they came home and told me this, my initial reaction was, "Oh, that's so disrespectful." I've never had anyone call me an it because I want to be called a her or a she because that's my identity. If someone had called me a he, I would immediately be like, "I'm a she." It felt more affirming to my child than she ever felt before. They were elated. I saw a joy in them that I had not seen since before they went through puberty, before they really thought they wouldn't grow breasts. They're getting their top surgery next month. I'm so excited to see how much better, more confident, and less depressed and anxious they're going to be. I'm very excited for that, for them. I'm excited for me to have transgender individuals in my life because they bring such richness and joy to my life. So I guess I'm a little selfish by wanting transgender people around me. I don't know. Do not take your own experience of being cisgender and try to think that everyone should be that way. Instead, do a thought experiment. What would I feel like if I woke up one day with the other gender's genitalia and like sex features? What if I woke up and everyone called me the opposite of my gender? How'd that feel? Cisgender people would be like, I hate that so much. It's more than just social conditioning, though. It's something that's at our core. Same with transgender individuals. It's something in their brain. It's something in their core. They are that other gender. Last thing, if you did that thought experiment and you thought to yourself, it wouldn't be so bad, but I'm choosing to be the gender in which my body manifests, you actually are probably transgender in some way yourself. Just food for thought. All right. It's almost been an hour. And now I got to go to work. So, let's continue this conversation. Please comment below. Please share. Please, please, please. Let's get this out there. Like my channel, whatever. I've never said that in my life. That was bizarre. But still, this is important. It's just important. Thank you for staying around. Have a good day.